In today's video, I'm going to be helping you with what I suspect could be your worst reselling fear: shipping breakables. I'm actually at the post right now. Right here is a box of 8 vintage water goblets. I've got some pottery, some picture frames. This cart is full of breakables. But I want you to know that this is the video I wished I'd had as a new reseller. I wished so badly that someone would show how to wrap up and ship properly everything from plates to platters, picture frames to tea kettles, vases, you name it. And I never found it, so I've made it for you today. After this video, you're not going to be a shipping schmuck anymore, Love-Bug. You're going to be a shipping specialist, and you'll be running, not walking, to your inventory shelves, your death pile, the thrift, the estate sales, the garage sales. Anything profitable that's breakable, you're going to be able to ship with courage after this video. So make sure to save it to your personal playlist as well. All right, it's time. Let's get learning. Before I jump in to demonstrating how to ship, I wanted to show you my small little shipping area. It's an old card table, and the real magic is up here on the wall. I can just pull that bubble wrap down and go to work. It's so wonderful. You see I have my stickers, my tape gun, everything's up and off the table until I need it, and it just works so great for me. In today's video, I am going to be demonstrating how to wrap several things, but first let's talk about this review. I want you to know, Love-Bug, that I too have failed miserably at packaging. This is so embarrassing. This customer basically told me how I should have packed their item. Horrible. But that just spurred me on to try harder, and before you know it, I received this beautiful review from a cute Etsy customer, and I hold this one in my heart. It's this review that made me dedicate myself to the Fort Knox Box. And right now, I am going to share the recipe. All right, let's get into this recipe. We're gonna line our box with a strip of sturdy paper. This will keep detritus and dirt out, and it provides a platform for our packing peanuts. You want a nice thick single layer. Next, you're gonna layer in your bundled items, and you're going to space them in such a way that you've left about 2 to 4 inches around the perimeter like this. That's really important because in the next step, we're going to be sprinkling in another layer of packing peanuts. And it's really important that you firmly pack those down and shove them into all the little crevices. And then you're going to add more on top of that until you've got a nice layer, thick, where you can't see your items anymore. After you do that, you're going to cut another piece of sturdy paper to crumple for the top. This is going to add a layer of cushion and protection. Now, I tested my box and there was still too much play, so I added another layer. And that's it. That is the Fort Knox Box. Next up, I'm going to be demonstrating how to wrap different items. In the description box below, you will find a time-stamped list so you know where to skip to in the video when you need help in the future wrapping specific items. I hope this helps. I also want to introduce you to a few of my special methods for wrapping, and you will see those graphic boxes as we go along in the video. Let's get started. We're starting off with those wine glasses you just saw. These are them pre-wrapped in my inventory. I do that all the time when something's really breakable, and it saves me time. I sold this set of 8 water goblets for $120. So it is very worth it to me to do what I'm gonna do. So here's my Dollar Tree pool noodle. I'm going to cut this down to size and clamp the pieces around the stem of these bubble wrapped wine glasses. Now, before I go on, you're going to notice my hands, and I just want to tell you this now. I have severe eczema. It's a newer health issue for me. I'm trying to deal with it. Wearing gloves sometimes hurts worse, so you're going to see it because, as my channel name states, this is Kelly Really, not Kelly Dreamy. So you're going to get real life. As a caregiver, as a reseller who uses my hands all day, this is quite something, quite a challenge, and I just try to deal with it the best I can. And I think I'm not alone in that, so I don't mind sharing. Okay, back to business. So I'm using these lengths of pool noodle to clamp around the stems, and then I'm going to use a piece of tape to secure them. They don't wrap all the way around, but that's okay. What we're trying to create here is a solid cylinder shape that's easy to wrap in packing paper so we can bundle these and then put them into our Fort Knox box. So that's what's going on here. Okay, when we've got all 8 done, we're gonna set them aside and one by one roll them. So we take the corner and we're basically making a burrito. Fold in the sides, continue the roll, and secure it with a little piece of tape. We're gonna do this 8 times, and then we're going to set them into our box and be done. You will remember this picture frame because we talked about it in my high profit vintage video. Step 1, get some sturdy paper and crumple it up. Add it to the top of the glass. Next step is to roll, essentially, the frame in lengths of bubble wrap. I use small bubble wrap closest to my items because it has more cushion per square inch. We're going to tape down the edges tightly because we're adding, that's right, pool noodles to the sides. Cut the length you need and then cut down one side. This method acts like bumpers around the sides of the frame and keeps it protected in transit. Go around all 4 edges doing this, and then we're going to start taping them together. Now, it's important as you're going around that you make sure things line up so that we don't have too much of a crazy shape when it's time to put this in, get this, a poly bag. Here I am taping up, and I'm going to go around a few times, twice each way. This just keeps everything nice and tight and secure. And when you layer tape on top of itself, you're increasing its tensile strength. That is how much pressure tape can hold before it breaks. I'm taking scrap cardboard and measuring it to lay across the top that has the glass. But underneath that, you'll see I tucked in some more sturdy crumpled paper. Now I'm going around and taping that down, and then I'm going to be testing to make sure I feel like there is plenty of cushion there, because again, that cardboard piece we used is serving as the box. This is not going into anything but a poly mailer when we're done. And it's just works beautifully. I've done this every time with my large picture frames, and it just is great. All right, now we're going to take a look at a lot of smaller picture frames. What I do is I tear off single sheets of small bubble wrap, and I am going to envelop each frame. I call this my envelope method. You can see why. So you're going to wrap up each picture frame in several envelopes. You'll see here that I have the glass side up, and I'm going to do 2 sheets before I flip it over and do the envelope on the opposite side. This method works so great because it creates about 1.5 inches of cushion between the frames, which I'm going to be stacking together in the box. Now, these frames, by the way, can be a dime a dozen, and I believe I sold this set for $40. So keep your eyes open on these little vintage gold frames. After you've got them all nice and bundled up, you're going to put down a layer in your box. Now, my son just ordered something in this box, so it had already come with this wonderful air bubble lining. One word of caution with air bubbles is in airplanes, they can deflate, and that's not good news. I'm layering some good sturdy crumpled paper here on top, testing it for cushion, and I'm good to go. I add my little thank you note, I close the box up, and I start taping. Now, when you tape, the seams, the edges are very important, but the most important is right here, the bottom seam. The bottom seam of a box is what handles most of the weight of the box. So if you're going to tape any seam double, it should be the bottom. Now I'm sticking this in a poly mailer and it barely fits, but I made it work. I always tape down loose corners and weird flaps because I've heard stories of packages getting caught on each other in the mail and not ending up where they were supposed to go. So my tip with this particular situation, as you'll see, is any little loose flaps on your poly bags, including right here on this weird edge, go ahead and tape them up so that everything's nice and tight and secure. And in this case, I wanted you to know the buyer received it in perfect condition. Next up, what do you do with a group of differently shaped things? Well, I will tell you. You use the envelope method wherever you can. I typically will do lids separately unless I feel like I can really secure them. For the pedestal, I ended up coiling, which I'll tell you about later. I used the Fort Knox Box recipe here. Lots and lots of peanuts shoved down and then another layer. And you can see here I'm testing for cushion. My customer raved about my packaging, so I wanted you to know it works. All right, plates. I know a lot of people who do not enjoy shipping plates, but I'm going to make it easy for you. The hardest part is probably finding a suitable box. Thankfully, my mom just ordered a bunch of kitchen things. I want to introduce you to the pie crust method. As you can see, I'm taking my bubble wrap and I'm wrapping it and rolling it up against the rim of the plate and then securing it with tape. Now, it's important for you to know I wrap all of my items first in cello bags. So when I tape them, I'm taping to the cello. Then I wrap it in lengths of bubble wrap and tuck the edges in over each other like you see me doing here. And then I secure it with a piece of tape or two, and that helps tremendously to keep those rims from chipping in transit. I go and do this on both sides, and then I'm going to place this in the box with first a layer of some good sturdy packing paper to absorb impact. Now, I'm not doing any packing peanuts in this box. I want you to notice I'm trying to keep the profile slim. So what I do is I add this crumpled up tissue to the bottom. I'm going to do a couple of sheets. And then you'll notice that when I go to put the plate in, I'm going to add more crumpled tissue to the convex, or is it concave, side of the plate, the indent. I've got my little thank you note there, and then I'm tucking on that paper and filling the bowl, if you will. Then I tuck it down in the box, and I'm going to add 2 more sheets of crumpled tissue, making sure to tuck it in all around both sides. And then it's time to seal the box, tape it down the seams, especially that little flap opening. Make sure everything's secure. Go ahead and smooth every piece of tape down. And then go look at your corners. I noticed on this box they were lifting. So I did 2 small pieces of tape at each corner to make sure those corners were super strong. This helps a lot when they start throwing boxes around. Have you ever got one and noticed it was completely ruined? This bottom seam needs double tape, and I did just that. Again, the bottom seam is the one that takes all the weight of the package. So you want to make sure it's secure. I slipped this into a large poly mailer and sealed her up to go. Real quick, I want to show you one of my tips. You know, sometimes you just don't have enough hands. So what I will do is I will fold the ends of the poly bag up as if I was ready to tape them. They kind of hold their shape there, as you can see. Then I tear off a strip of tape and I lay it under the edge of that flap and bring it up and over. And that's how I do it all the time. I don't know when I started doing this, but it's been a real time saver. I'm going to do the same on this little edge, bringing it up. So once again, Nothing's hanging or flapping in the wind. We've got a nice tight package and a happy customer. Happy to report. Well, what is a platter but a super large plate? We are going to be using the pie crust method, and we are starting with this Ziploc bag that I had it stored in. I store all of my items after I photograph them in either cello bags or Ziploc bags like this one. I get these larger ones at the Dollar Tree. They have different sizes and they're really wonderful. I use them all the time for larger objects. So I'm going to take the plastic corners and roll them up and secure them to the rim of the plate. Next, I'm going to do this with my small bubble wrap. I'm going to take a length of bubble wrap, I'm going to roll up the ends and tape them like pie crust on the two sides of this platter. Then I'm going to turn the platter the other way and do it all over again. I came up with the name pie crust because it reminds me so much of my grandma Tressa, who made pies every single time we went to visit her from scratch, and she taught me how to do the crust with my fingers and my thumb. So it's just a fun thing for me to, reminisce about. After I've got this platter all nice and taped up against the rim, I'm going to be rolling it once again in lengths of bubble wrap. After I roll it one way, I tear it off and I roll it the other way. I secure one end with tape and roll it. Now you're going to see coming up that after I do this, I inspect it to make sure all the edges are good. And look here, it's not. There's a bare spot. So I tear off a little more of my bubble wrap, and then I'm going to do a little pie crust patch, if you will. And that really did the trick. It's all I needed to do. And there she is, all nice and bundled and ready to be boxed. Now for the box, we're going to do something called a frankenbox. We're going to create a new box out of an old box. I am going to take my box cutter and cut down just two sides so that I essentially have one long piece of cardboard. I'm placing my platter here to make sure she's going to fit. Then I take off the extra edges and I start creating the box. Now, the best way to do this is probably to use a ruler, but I never do. You'll see that I use my box cutter and just run it across the surface of my item to get close to where the box needs to bend, where I need to score it. So here we are, we've got our strip of cardboard. I'm laying it in the middle and I'm bringing up the two sides to see where I need to score the box so I can fold it over. I make an effort to eye it up, and as you can see, I'm not using a ruler, I'm just free-flowing, if you will, and then I'm going to bend this side up. So, hey, we're halfway there already. You can see where I'm going with this. I love this method. I do it all the time for plates and platters because I can rarely find a box that's going to work. In this case, I didn't even need to trim that flap. A lot of times I have to do that. So now I'm going to use that flap as my guide for scoring the other side. You can't really see my arms in the way, I'm sorry, but there it is. I scored it. I'm folding it over and voila. Now it's time to tape, and I'm going to tape across the length of it down the sides. I am not needing to have sides on this. The box extends over the rim of the platter, so it's going to be just fine. What I am doing is going around several times and smoothing the tape down as I go. Again, this is capitalizing on the tensile strength of the tape by multiplying the layers. I'm going to add two more strips down the two sides to make this even stronger. And that's it. That's our frankenbox, and we are going to be slipping it into a poly mailer and on its way. And just a little reminder, always tape up those loose or slack sides of your poly mailer. Here we have a fiesta place setting. I've got a plate, a bowl, and a mug, and I'm putting them in a box that I think is going to work. I'm checking it for size. The plate's a little wonky in there, but I'm going to try it out. first I do the mug, and I use the cello bag and I fold it in a way that it protects the handle as the first layer. Now I'm going to do the same with my small bubble wrap. I'm going to double up on the handle and then pull it around and tape it. Then I'm going to take the two ends and sort of do the envelope method, where I just sort of bring the edges together and fold them down and tape them. Now, this is an oversized mug, so it's going to end up having some bare areas on the sides. And when I'm putting this in with a bowl and a plate, I need to make sure it's not going to rub up against anything. So I'm going to be using a method that I haven't showed you yet. It's called the spackle method. And that's where I'm going to take a single piece or two of a small bubble wrap and I'm going to apply it to the bald area. So I'm going to fold it up to size. That's too big. I need to fold that down again. And then I'm going to apply it and tape it. This is just the very easiest, quickest way to not send something out the door that really needs extra wrap on it. Sometimes we get impatient and we think that's good enough. I think you should err on the side of overdoing it myself, but to each his own. With the bowl, I'm going to do the envelope again. Even though the corners aren't completely meeting in the middle, I'm still using this method because it's such a great one for layering protection. I'm going to use single sheets of 12-inch small bubble wrap, and I'm going to do this in such a way that when I pull the corners up with the bottom layer, it's also pulling up the corners that are already created on there. I tape the corners, and I'm going to repeat this several times to give probably about a 1/2 inch of protection. Now, with the other pieces having at least a 1/2 inch of protection, I'm creating at least 1 inch between the pieces when I put them together in the box. All right, after I add a few more pieces to the bowl, I set that and the mug aside and I start in on the plate. Now I am going to start with a method that you may already have heard from me. It's called pie crust, and that's where I scrunch up the bubble wrap around the rim and tape it down. Again, my plate's in a cello bag, so I'm not taping to the plate, I'm taping to the cello bag. Now I do this to both sides, and then I turn the plate on a fresh sheet of bubble wrap, and I do it to the other two sides. And this method has proven its weight in gold over and over again with all the plates I've shipped. Now, if I'm doing a stack of plates, I don't do this with them. I do something different, and I will show that probably on a short. But for today, I mean, I've sold many single plates and platters, so I think it's very worthwhile showing you this method. After the pie crust is complete, it's time to wrap it in strips of small bubble wrap. So I will go one way several times. Sometimes I secure the end with a piece of tape like I am here, and I'll roll it as tight as I can. Tear it off, give it another little tight pull and a strip of tape, and then I'll either wrap it the other way or do this method. This is where I take the edges of the plate and I pull the bubble wrap up around the edge one over the other and tape it down like this. This works beautifully. I do it a lot. This is what I do the most. Now, I'm going back to my box and noticing that the plate will fit in at an angle, but that's probably not a great idea until I realize I can put the mug under it and then fit the bowl on top of that. So let me show you what I've got going here. I've got the mug, then the plate, then the bowl. So back to our Fort Knox box. I'm going to put in a layer of paper. I'm going to sprinkle in my packing peanuts in a nice thick single layer. I'm going to put the mug in, then the plate, and then the bowl. And it doesn't look like it's going to fit, but I zhuzhed it. Now, to fill in the big voids, I'm going to use my super structured thick packing paper and crumple it into balls. And I'm going to push that next to the mug, especially where I have two voids. And this stuff works great. Then I can fill in the rest of the box with my packing peanuts. On the edge of the plate, I decided to do half a pool noodle, and that ended up working perfect. One of my favorite things to source and sell are sculptural pieces, like this gorgeous Royal Copley deer vase. It's so sweet, but look at all those angles and voids. This is going to need some special attention. It's called the coil method, and my favorite thing to use is that snake paper from Amazon. Yes, I call it snake paper for obvious reasons. We are going to coil the deer like the snake is attacking. And what our goal here is to create a shape that's recognizable, like a rectangle or a square or a cylinder, instead of this very beautiful natural shape that we can't package easily. So once we coil it into a squared off shape, look how easy it is to wrap up in bubble wrap. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. That's what you're going to want to do with all of your asymmetrical, curvy, odd-shaped pieces. You're going to want to coil. And that Amazon paper is great, but you can use any packing paper. Just twist and crunch it into a snake-like length. You can also use pool noodles and maybe newspaper, but I warn you, with newspaper, the ink can transfer. So once you've coiled up your item and got it into this nice shape, package it up, square it off with your bubble wrap, and you're ready to slip it into a Fort Knox box, and you're good to go. When I spotted this gorgeous Vera Newman 1970s teapot on the store shelf, I just about fell over. Then I fell over again thinking, how am I going to protect it? And then I remembered my pool noodles. So I'm going to measure a length against both the handle and the spout, cut them to size, slice down one side, and fasten them to the protruding pieces, just like this. Isn't that great? I love pool noodles. Now, depending on the size of your teapot and the shape of the spout, you may have to get slightly creative with your noodles, meaning you may have to cut two smaller pieces at an angle or something like that. In this case, it was easy to just cut two pieces, stick them on, and now I'm going to secure them to each other around the pot with tape. Notice my pot was already in a cello bag, so I'm not taping to the pot. Never ever tape to your pieces. But I'm going around a few times, and now I'm ready to wrap the lid, which I am not going to attach to the pot. The way I bundle this lid is the way I bundle every lid. I fold over one piece of bubble wrap, and then I fold in one corner, and then I flip it and fold on the other side. So it's got equal protection all the way around. Now, I am not going to tape this to the pot until I've wrapped it in bubble wrap, and I'll show you what that looks like. So here we have sort of a more squared off shape. I talked about this when you're wrapping sculptural pieces, things that are asymmetrical. You want to square them off as much as possible. So I take a piece of snake paper, I call it, a crumpled, twisted length, and I'm going to fill in the gap underneath these pool noodles so that I've got an even more squared off piece to wrap. Once I get that secured, and it takes me a minute, but it's so worth it because I just know the protection is all the way around this thing from top to bottom. Now, don't do like me. Make sure your item is centered on its bubble wrap, and I'll tell you why, because you're going to come up short on one side. And I was just trying to hurry and get, the video done, and that's shame on me. You'll see right here, this is the edge where I came up short. Now, I needed to either unwrap it and start again, or take a single or two pieces of bubble wrap and spackle that side, as I call it. Nevertheless, I squared it up, and it was ready for its box. And that's a wrap, pun intended. Hope it helped you. So sit back, relax, and let's get to learning. Kelly here in today's has some Fiesta pottery, some picture frames, soup to nuts, the whole enchilada. It's definitely dinner time. The sun's going down.